and welcome everyone today to our speaker, Dr. Diego Paul, who is a paleontologist, and today's talk is on dinosaurs from the Mesozoic, 230 million years ago, to the end of the Cretaceous, 65 million years ago. Dr. Diego Paul is a principal researcher at the National Research Council of Argentina and a leading scientist at the Museo Argentino de Ciencias Naturales in Buenos Aires. His research focuses on the evolution and biodiversity of Mesozoic vertebrates, particularly dinosaurs and crocodiliforms. That was a new word for me today. Over his career, he has described more than 30 species of new dinosaurs and other reptiles, including the giant titanosaur, Patagotimaeorum, one of the largest dinosaurs ever discovered, and here on our screen. With over 150 scientific publications, Dr. Paul's work has been featured in top-tier journals such as Nature and Science. His research has contributed to the modern understanding of dinosaur evolution, and for more than 2 decades, he has led paleontological expeditions across Patagonia, uncovering fossils that reveal the prehistoric ecosystems of the Southern Hemisphere. His expertise has been recognized globally, earning him visiting professorships at institutions such as the University of Chicago and Cornell University. He is also a National Geographic explorer, frequently contributing to documentaries and educational programs, including the BBC and PBS special, Raising the Giant Dinosaur. Dr. Paul continues to explore how dinosaurs evolved in response to past climate change and extinction events, offering valuable insights into modern biodiversity challenges. We are honored to have with us today, in person, live, in real time, Dr. Diego Paul. Thank you so much for joining us.
Very good. Thank you very much, Rita. I'm very, very happy to be with you. I will share a brief presentation, and then we can do a Q&A if you want.
Yes.
I thought we will appropriate to talk about why dinosaurs are so fascinating, and why and how they became giants in what we call the Mesozoic era. This a period of time that actually occurred between 250 million years and 66 million years, right? And the Mesozoic era, we divided into 3 different periods: the Triassic, the Jurassic, and the Cretaceous. And they show us how dinosaurs evolved first, radiated into 3 main branches. In the Triassic, then in the Jurassic, as you see in this evolutionary tree, they diversify even more. And then by the end of the Mesozoic, in the Cretaceous, they have the peak of diversity and abundance and morphological disparity, right? And one of the features that really attract the attention of dinosaurs is gigantism, right? They are giants. And when we talk about gigantism in dinosaurs, we're mainly talking about gigantism in sauropods. Here we have an outline of 3 skeletons of the 3 main kinds, the major kinds of dinosaurs. And you can see one of them, the sauropods, are way, way larger than the other one, right? The ones in the middle, the meat-eating dinosaurs, are the theropods, and the ones on the left are the ornithischians, in this case, the duck-billed dinosaurs. And if you compare these dinosaur groups with mammal animals that we're very familiar with today, you can see that even the largest mammal is a dwarf in comparison to what a sauropod is. So sauropods were these long neck, quadrupedal dinosaurs with a long tail and a very small head that really attracted the attention of people through time. So this, since the late 1800s, people were fascinated with the size of these animals, and across cultures we see people fascinated with dinosaurs, certainly across all ages, especially for kids. And that's why dinosaurs are so important to bring kids closer to science and to make them learn about different aspects of the past of our planet. And one interesting aspect about body size is that in many groups, land animals never went above the 10 tons limit, right? This is, for instance, the maximum body size of mammals through time. And you can see they barely made above the 10 ton limit. And the same for the meat-eating dinosaurs, right? They became larger and larger, but they barely made it to this limit. But when we talk about sauropods, they went, they passed this limit like no other group, and they went up to body sizes up to 60 or more tons, right? And they were really, herbivorous animals. So they were living in this world, certainly a very lush world that will provide enough vegetation for them to be able to grow, to reproduce, and to thrive in this world, because they dominated the planet for over 150 million years, right? So they were present all over the world in all continents, from Antarctica to North America to Central Asia. But they were very, very abundant here in Patagonia. Patagonia is the southern tip of South America. It's one of the places that I've been working for over 20 years now. And I actually lived in Patagonia for like 18 years in this city, in Trelew, and this is a museum where I work. About 13 years ago, we received a phone call from a rancher that lived 3 hours away from this place, saying he found a dinosaur bone in the ranch. So we say, okay, we will go and visit and check it out at some point. And we didn't go for the next 2 months because we were busy with other projects. And he called again and said, like, you should really come and see what we have found. So this person had found something very similar to this. It's a chunk of a large bone that is just sticking out of the ground. And when you see that, when you walk in the desert and you find something like this, you can recognize this is a bone. That there's something about the texture, the color that really sticks out, and it doesn't look like any other rock in the region. And the texture is very similar to a bone, because it's a dinosaur fossilized bone, right? So he took us to a place, and we went and saw exactly that there was a big bone getting into the ground. So it was just sticking out of the ground. Here's my colleague cleaning the surface, and we're beginning to do the dig. And after, a week digging there, is that we found this massive bone that is the femur. It's certainly the largest dinosaur bone ever found, but this was fascinating, certainly. But one of the most spectacular things about this place is that this bone was only the tip of the iceberg, right? We opened a quarry there, and we collected over 150 bones, and all together belonging to different animals that died in the very same place. That allow us to reconstruct this and to recognize a new dinosaur species, this Patagotitan. We know about 65% of the skeleton, which is a lot for a giant dinosaur, and it allows us, to understand how these giants were built, how these animals move around, and how heavy they got to be. One of the ways we used to estimate how heavy an animal is based on these two bones highlighted in blue there, the femur and the humerus. These are the pillars that support the entire body weight of the animal. And they have a really, really good correlation with body mass. So by measuring the circumference of these two bones, we can extrapolate and infer the body mass, how heavy these animals were. And we estimated that this animal weighed like 60 tons, right? That's about the times of 10 African elephants, and that's how, as long as one of these Boeing 737 airliners that you frequently see in the airport. We also were very lucky because where this animal was buried, there were some volcanic ashes, and volcanic ashes are very good because they will provide you a very accurate age for the rocks. So we know exactly that this animal was 101.6 million years old, right? And this is the time of the maximum peak of body size, and really was a very particular time in the history of the planet because this was one of the hottest time in the history of the planet. This is a time also when our ecosystems, the land ecosystems, were changing because a new kind of plants evolved and start spreading across the planet, the flowering plants. Before this time, there were no flowers, there were no flowering plants, they were all ferns and conifers and cycads, but no flowering plants. And then at this time is when they appear and they start evolving and occupying different places in the ecosystems and actually taking over the ecosystem. Nowadays, when we go out and we see, most of them are, most of the plants we see out there in nature are flowering plants. Along with flowers came a series of insects and small arthropods that actually are very important components of our ecosystem. So this is a time when our world changed in a very dramatic way, and when we begin seeing things that we are very familiar for us today. Sauropods were very versatile because they go from the size of 1 elephant to the size of 10 elephants, right? And they go within that range, body size range, without changing that much. The body type, the body plan, it's very similar among all sauropods. And they dominated for 100 million years, right? So one of the most important aspects of the sauropod body plan is that they have this very long neck, very long tail, and very columnar limbs. And when you look at the skeleton of a sauropod from underneath, it kind of looks like this. This is at the American Museum of Natural History, where you will be, if you go, you will be able to see a cast replica of Paleotitan. And the way they are built is very similar to this, with pillars and then with a very light but flexible horizontal skeleton, right? So there are many similarities in the way we build bridges and the way that sauropod skeletons are built. The horizontal part is key, is the backbone, and the vertebrae of these animals were very complex. They were very tall, very complex, and hollow. If you cut them, you will see that half of the vertebra, the bone, is air, right? And also they're very tall. This is, a cow. If you cut a cow, you will see. You probably will recognize a steak there, but you will see the vertebra in the middle, and you will see the neural spine is the process going up, and you see how the muscle covers from the top to the side, right? And that will give us the profile of the muscle, which is the actual steak that we, right? In a sauropod, the neural spine that goes up is way higher, indicating that the muscles that they were going along that side were much larger in proportion, right? So they were built in a very different way. And when I mentioned that were complex and hollows, you can see in the vertebra on the left, on the right, all these pockets that are on the side. And if you do a CT scan of this vertebra, you will see that it's all full of hollows and cavities inside. So it's a mesh of bony lamina with a lot of spaces in between. So they're very, very complex, and this very pneumatic structure is indicative of a very sophisticated respiratory system, which is similar to what modern birds have today. Another feature of these animals is they were bulk feeders. I mean, they were not selective at all what they were eating. They had this big, broad snout and jaws with big teeth, and these teeth, they were not being used to actually chew, but to cut plant matter and swallow. And they were probably eating all day long, and their teeth were getting worn very quickly, and they were changing these teeth very, very frequently. I mean, this is a CT scan of the jaw of one of these dinosaurs, and you can see there like 4 to 5 teeth in each socket. That means they were changing their teeth all the time. Probably one of these teeth will be good and lasted for like maybe 40 or 60 days, not more than that. And then it was completely worn, and a new tooth will come up, and they will, and so on and so forth. Now, the other thing is they were big, and they were big because they were super fast growers. They were able to grow really, really fast. And how we know that? Because we can cut the bones, and we can study how the bone tissue was deposited, and we can estimate how fast this bone tissue was deposited and how fast these animals were growing. And then the final, secret for these animals is that they were living in herds. They were living in herds, and they were creating these nesting grounds, these collective or groupal nesting grounds. They were not breeding alone. We have found in different places of the planet different colonial nesting sites, and they're really wonderful places because they're wonderful opportunities to learn a lot about the behavior of these animals. And we know this behavior lasted for 100 million years, since the very origins of the dinosaur history. Now, when we talk about dinosaur history, we are going way back in time to older than 200 million years old. And this is how the planet looked like about 230 million years old when dinosaurs first appeared in the planet. All continents were together. We have a lot of good information from South America and South Africa from this time. And this is how the first dinosaurs looked like. They're small, bipedal animals. They were carnivores. I'm holding here the skull of the oldest dinosaur. You can see they're not that big. So they had these humble, much smaller origins with teeth that were adapted for eating other animals. These are the typical teeth that you will find in a carnivore. And they originated in this world, but they soon started spreading across the planet, and their evolution was, from the very early days, was very explosive. These are just some discoveries we made in the last 15 years in South America only. So it shows the high diversity they have as soon as they appear. When we first see the early evolution of dinosaurs is when we start seeing the origin of this gigantism and the origin of this diversity. I will mention some of the discoveries we made in recent years in South America that are related to understanding the origin of these very peculiar habits of the nesting grounds. This is a reconstruction of the oldest nesting ground found so far. It's in southern Patagonia, and the dinosaur that you see there is called Musaurus. And the first dinosaur of this species that was found was discovered in 1979. and it was one of the smallest of these population. It was a baby dinosaur. This is probably an animal that died when it was a week or 2 weeks old. There were not only one of them, 6 of them together in a nest. We have been working on this site for many years. We have now a really large number of skeletons of different sizes, from the babies to fully grown adults. But the very interesting thing is that we also found many eggs, right? And the eggs that we found in these places look like this. They're not that big, not much bigger than a chicken egg. And sometimes we found them isolated, like the one on the left. Sometimes we found nests with 25 to 30 eggs. And inside these eggs, we have found something very, very cool. That is the embryos of the dinosaurs that were being formed inside, which was actually a key evidence for tying this population from the eggs to the fully grown adults. A few years ago, I took some of the eggs to do a high resolution CT scanning in this place. It's a place where high energy X-ray are used to provide super high resolution CT scans of the eggs. We'll put the eggs there, and this is what you will see inside in one of the eggs. This is the egg, and soon you will see what was inside the egg. So there you can see the eggshell, and inside you can see the bones of the embryo of the dinosaur was being formed. This was 192 million years old, and this is the lower jaw of the dinosaur that was being formed. That was a key piece of information because it showed us features that were unique of not only the baby dinosaur here in the middle and the larger individuals that you see on top. So this is a comparison of the size from the embryo to the baby to the larger, probably 2-3 years old animals, and it really helped us putting together this scene, right? That shows one of the key features of these animals, that they were living together, they were reproducing together, and they were forming these colonial nesting sites, which is a behavior that nowadays you will see probably in some birds, like penguins, on some marine birds that cluster together for reproduction because they find safety in numbers. So with this, I will wrap up my presentation. I will open to any questions you may have.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So, of course, I have one question. I have others, but this is time for the group to put your questions into the chat. If you scroll over the bottom of your screen to the left, after audio, video, there's chat. And if you click on that, you can open the chat and put in a question. My first question was, and you sort of answered it, but how do you figure out the missing parts if you only find 60% or 40% of a skeleton?
Yeah, so we basically base that on what are the anatomy or the shape of the bones of the relatives. So we have here, we know this animal belongs to a family that are called titanosaurs. We know about 100 titanosaur species all over the planet. Some of them are more complete than others, but some of them, for instance, have a complete neck. And here we have found the necks that are highlighted in color. So the neck bones, the neck vertebra that are in the front, a couple in the middle, and those oranges in the end of the neck. We're missing 4 or 5 neck vertebra, and we model them based on similar species from the same family that have, preserve those vertebrae. So basically, we looked for relatives that are better known.
That's great. Okay, Team Willie, Team Ricola, and all the rest of our guests, please, if you have any questions, put them into the chat. I will forward them to Dr. Paul. I have another question, because you showed a lot of illustrations and they were very colorful. And we know that they're the long ago ancestors of birds. But do you think that dinosaurs had feathers?
Well, many of them did. Many of them did. There's no evidence that these super giant had any feathers. When we look at the dinosaur tree, we know many of these bipedal dinosaurs that later gave rise to bears. Many of them were feathered. We know the other ones, the ornithischians, some of them have something on that look like feathers, but there are so far no evidence that the long neck, the sauropods, have any feathers. We do have skin impressions from many of them, and they had scales. So feathers were common among some dinosaurs, but certainly not present in all of them.
Thank you. We have a question from Margot. So how long did it take you to dig up the bones on the Patagotitan?
It took us about 18 months altogether. We made, we had teams of between 20 and 30 people working at a time. We organized a series of shifts. So about 120 different people worked in the project, many volunteers, students, grad students, undergrads, people from other countries that came to help out, because it was a very big project. Certainly we weren't able to do it by ourselves. So it was a very big team that helped us digging that animal.
So my next question is, how did the emergence of flowering plants, you mentioned that early on, how did that influence the evolution of the sauropods?
Well, I mean, we don't exactly know, but we know there were many changes in the ecosystems at that time, and we see many changes in the evolution of sauropods in terms of body size at that time. So probably it was a lot more influential for herbivores that were more selective, like smaller dinosaurs that were more picky about what they were eating, than to sauropods. Sauropods were, they needed to eat a lot, so they couldn't afford to be picky. Some of them were eating probably 500 pounds of plant matter per day. So they probably needed to eat anything they were able to get their mouth on, right? But certainly there were many changes in the ecosystem that might have affected sauropod evolution, although we don't know exactly how that process affected them.
I have so many questions, but I want to make sure that Ricola, people on your team and in the audience, don't feel shy. There are no wrong questions. So I do want to mention that. So if there's something that you're thinking about, write it in the chat. I do want to mention that you said there is a plaster cast of this giant dinosaur at the Museum of Natural History in New York. How did that relationship happen? And how did we make a cast of the bones and get it to New York?
We frequently, when we put together a new dinosaur skeleton on display, we frequently made a cast of every single bone. We put together a cast rather than the original bones. The bones themselves are very fragile and they're very heavy. So in this case, we scan every single bone and we 3D print most of the bones. Some of them we made the latex mold and plastic resin copy. And then this allow us to make 1 or 2 or 3 copies of the skeleton and allows us to show it in different places. Otherwise, you would have to come down here to Patagonia to see the fossil, right? And when we were doing this, we connected with people in New York. I did my PhD there, so I have a strong connection and affiliation with the museum. So we offer them if they wanted that replica to exhibit in the halls of the Natural History Museum, and luckily that actually happened. And since 2016, that cast is being shown there in New York, in Manhattan. And then there's another copy in Chicago at the Field Museum. So those are 2 major museums in the US, and we're very happy that our dinosaurs can be exhibited there.
The Field Museum in Chicago, yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So at the beginning of this, before all the folks came, we were having a sort of interesting discussion about bringing extinct animals, and probably not dinosaurs, and you can explain why, but bringing, many of our guests, I'm sure, have seen Jurassic Park, but have heard in the news that now we're thinking about, we've, created woolly mice and we're considering recreating woolly mammoths. So what are your thoughts around that? And is it ever possible? Do you think it'll be possible with any dinosaurs?
Yeah, with dinosaurs, likely not. I mean, they are very, very old creatures. They became extinct 66 million years ago, and there's not much hope for finding DNA from these animals, which is not the case with animals that live recently, like a few thousand years ago, not millions years ago. So animals that lived thousands of years ago, like the mammoth and so on, the so-called the Ice Age mammoths, we can certainly find DNA in these remains, and people are working to clone these animals, and I think sooner or later they will be able. And we're discussing if this is something that is really worth doing, or if it is ethical, and what is the real reason for doing that. So there's some effort to bring back extinct animals that were killed and decimated by humans in the last, let's say, 200 years. And we mentioned the passenger pigeon or the dodo, and maybe cloning them will be a way to bring them back. Now, animals that disappeared thousands and thousands of years ago, and they lived in the Ice Age, in a planet that has changed in a very significant way. I don't know if there's a really good reason for bringing them back to life.
As a librarian, the Ice Age Mammals giant book in my library was the most popular book. It was, it would just go out, come back, go out, because I think you can look at a saber-toothed tiger and see a lion and see a lion today, or a woolly mammoth and an elephant. But of course, kids love dinosaurs.
Absolutely. That, as a kid, I love those books more so than the dinosaur book.
Absolutely fascinating. We have a question from Ricola. So how do you know where to look for dinosaur bones?
We look at the rocks that are on the surface. So the rocks that are on the surface must be the right age. If I in the city where I live, the rocks are here on the surface or close to the surface are probably 10,000 years old. So if I find any fossil, will not be a dinosaur, will be a mammal, right? If I go to the desert, in like the place in Patagonia that I show you, or some places in Montana, or you will find dinosaurs that are Cretaceous age, because the rocks that are exposed there were formed during the Cretaceous, about 100 million years ago. So basically, you need to look for the right rocks, and that means you need to work with geologists and work with geological maps to find out that.
That's great. We have another question. Is there an evolutionary reason as to why early dinosaurs may have laid soft shell eggs as opposed to hard shell eggs?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, well, we know that some dinosaurs likely laid soft shell eggs, especially in the early part. Like you see in this chart that I'm sharing, dinosaurs from the Triassic and Jurassic, the first two periods, are likely many of them, we think many of them laid soft shell egg. And then by the Cretaceous, you start seeing mineralized or hard shelled eggs with calcium carbonate shell, like the chicken egg, right? And they're all over the place, all continents, and the three different groups of dinosaurs laid hard shelled eggs. So at some point there likely was a change in the way dinosaurs were laying eggs, and they started laying eggs that had a mineralized shell on the outer layer.
I want to talk about penguins, but I'm because I'm just fascinated. I think the first AMNH workshop I ever went to was around dinosaurs and birds, so it's really on top of mind. But one of the things I think that is always hard for people to understand is a time scale. 10,000 years, okay, maybe I can wrap my head around that, but how do you help people understand the time scale of 100 million years? Like, that's so long.
Yeah, it's very long. It's and it's sometimes we lose. We don't realize that dinosaurs dominated our planet for so long that we are closer in time to T-Rex and Triceratops than T-Rex is to Stegosaurus or other Jurassic dinosaurs. So they really dominated life for a really long time.
Compared to people who have dominated
the
planet for like this tiny amount of time.
Sure.
This.
Yes.
It is a tough I remember a scientist trying to explain to me that there were 100 million stars in the galaxy, and he did it by grains of sand, and it filled up his entire car trunk. Those kinds of analogies are helpful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Analogies are great for understanding concepts like this.
This has been absolutely wonderful. We are so lucky to have had time with you today. I know we all love the Museum of Natural History, so obviously the Field Museum is another great place, so it's wonderful that your work is represented in those locations. But I have just one personal question, if you don't mind, because you are a role model. what happened? Like, how did you decide that you wanted to become a paleontologist? Like, was there a moment where rocks or dinosaurs or birds or something like helped you to start on your path?
No, I was in high school and I signed up as a volunteer at the Natural History Museum in the city where I was living. I did my volunteering at the paleontology department, and I saw how people were working what they were doing on a daily basis. I think I found, a yeah, a clear picture of what a paleontology does. And I loved it. And I was probably 15 or 16, and I thought, well, yeah, this is what I want to do. And I have been working in museums for my entire life. So I I really like museums because they are open to people. There's many volunteers that participate in museums all over the world, and they are key components of the museum community.
So looking back at your 15-year-old self, you know, could at that, how did you ever think that you would be the person to find the Titanosaur? Like,
No, absolutely not.
like,
Absolutely not.
uh,
No, absolutely. There's some things that are very, very hard to imagine or picture or yeah, absolutely. I No, that it has been it was a great surprise for all the people involved in this project because, as I said, there were many, many people that worked with us. It was a big team, and yeah, it was a really, really wonderful, wonderful surprise.
thank you so much for your time
You're welcome.
today.
You're welcome.
It was wonderful. I have to say that a bridge analogy was really helpful. So thank you for that, to understand sort
Think
of
about
how,
it next time
yeah,
you
get
go on the
something to think
bridge.
about it. Exactly. And folks, if you're at the American Museum of Natural History, you've got to see the dinosaurs. I grew up in the museum there, and that was always our favorite place. And when they renovated it, we were really glad to see they saved the murals, on the walls.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
Very
great,
nice.
beautiful, beautiful.
Well, have a wonderful rest of your day. And Ricola, thank you for co-hosting with me today. And thank you to all our participants. And a big thank you, Dr. Diego Paul. It's been an honor to spend time with you today.
You're welcome.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you.